I think I call the upfront piece sort of the upfront transition comp, the emotional piece. Right. It's the piece that provides the most comfort. It's the piece that seems like the biggest carrot that a firm might dangle. Like, we're going to give you, 2x or 200% upfront. Yeah. That seems to be the number.
Paying for immediate work that you have to do.
Exactly.
Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa, brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners. It's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and the direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. And now, welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. I am your host, Frank LaRosa, with my co-host, Stacey Frank. Stacey with an E. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be back as always. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. I feel like it's been a minute since I've recorded a podcast with you. So I'm glad to be back. I was out and about doing all sorts of things.
All the things that you do?
All the things that I do. Well, actually meeting with clients, going on home office visits with clients. And really, really engage with some clients recently, more so than a while. And actually, one of the conversations, which is the topic of this conversation, was really sort of getting into and educating them on the deals, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to be getting into that conversation right now. But for those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome to the show. Advisor Talk is really designed for the audience to be, joining us in a conversation. Sitting here having a cup of coffee or tea, in my case, and just talking about the business and talking about real scenarios, real things that are happening in the space, conversations that we're having with advisors all over the country, and they're designed really just to be educational, right? And so today I wanted to talk about, what you wanted to talk about, and it's a conversation that we've had in the past, but it's interesting, it's sort of cropping up again. In that people are getting confused with what parts of the deal they should be focused on, right? When they're looking at what defines a good deal versus a bad deal.
And I think just some maybe misconception just in the industry in general is that the upfront portion or the transition compensation is the whole story. I'm not saying that every advisor thinks that, but it's really the part that's the most obvious. Well, what's the upfront piece? What's my payout? But the story goes so much deeper than just that. And I think that's sort of the crux of this conversation.
Yeah, I was talking to an advisor last week. This is Tuesday, last week. And, to his credit, he made a great point. He said, I'm going to be doing this for a long time. And so the really... Am I wrong in thinking that I should be more concerned about the payout and the ongoing economics? So I'm not going to say, because we're misleading there. It's not necessarily the payout. It's the ongoing economics over the upfront money. And what I was trying to educate him on is that firms are willing to give you more upfront money in lieu of a lower payout, because they know they've done the math, right? They understand that if they can give you a lower payout, which is going to be over a longer period of time, they'll make out way more than if they give you the higher payout, right? And so what we were talking about is what should we be negotiating? Because part of what we do for our clients is we do the negotiation for our clients. And I was trying to talk to him about, this is the approach we take. This is, tell me what you're looking to get accomplished, but ultimately you're tasking me to get you the best deal possible. Well, if you're going to be in the business for north of 10 years, right, the best deal is how much money are you going to make, how much more money are you going to make over a 10 or 15 year period of time. And when we run analysis and pro formas, it's all the time. It's more important to negotiate better terms, ongoing terms, than it is to get an extra 10% up front.
Yeah, look, I think I call the upfront piece sort of the upfront transition comp, the emotional piece.
Right.
It's the piece that provides the most comfort. It's the piece that seems like the biggest carrot that a firm might dangle. Like, we're going to give you, 2x or 200% upfront.
Yeah.
That seems to be the number.
Paying for immediate work that you have to do.
Exactly.
Little deferred comp, lost deferred comp sometimes, all of that. That's where these things came from in the first place.
Exactly. And we don't negate that. We're not sensitive to that. The upfront component is really important. It sometimes
Real
helps.
money.
Right. It offsets the loss of assets, the emotions that you go through, the financial piece during the transition. But I don't want to say the smartest advisors, but maybe the advisors that are most aware know that that's just one piece of the story.
Right.
And the long-term profitability of their business is the part that we do a lot of consulting on.
Right. Yeah. When we run pro formas and we compare deals, a lot of times what surprises the financial advisor, our client, is when we put a deal next to each other where one has substantially higher upfront money, but the other deal, the economic component, so the payout, the admin fee, if there's an admin fee or if there's no admin fee, ticket charges or transaction charges versus no transaction charges. And so sometimes we'll put a competing firm against each other where those economics are better. And then over a 6 or 7 year period of time, that's usually about to break even, that firm that had the lower transition bonus actually ends up being a better deal for that advisor over a 10 or 12 year period of time. And the reason why that's important, and I think this is huge, because I was just talking to one of my guys, Pete, and about one of his clients, and this same conversation came up. Well, yeah, I know, but he was trying to say, well, yeah, I know, but the one firm is going to give the advisor, a much bigger upfront component. I said, yeah, but that's only on day one. In order for him to to officially realize all the money that a firm is giving you, and this is sort of a generic thing, right? They're asking you to sign a 9 or 10 year contract, which means that even though, yes, you have the money in your hand, right? It's ultimately still a loan that you have to pay back a portion of it, right? So if you left early, if you left 5 years into it, you have to give some of that money back. So the way I look at deals is you don't fully have that money until the end of the contract, right? Because if something happens, you have to pay the money back. So you have to look at deals over the life of that contract, whether it's 7 years, 9 years, 10 years. So what I was trying to explain to my consultant to talk to his client with is, what is the total accumulated wealth over the same 10-year period it was basically between Wells Fargo and Raymond James.
Yep.
Right? And that's the number he has to look at. Even though Wells Fargo might be giving this particular advisor more money up front, their economics are much worse than Raymond James, because not only is the payout lower, and this is to your point here, right? The payout is lower. That's an easy one, right? But at Wells Fargo, in this case, there's also discount sharing, which a lot of advisors forget. When you discount share, and just about every advisor I know discounts their fees or their transaction charges, well, at a firm like Wells Fargo and some other wirehouse firms, once you get to a certain threshold of discount, they then started cutting your payout by the same amount of discount, right? So if you might think you're at a 40, we were going through this math, the advisor thought he was at like a 44% payout. But when you looked at his effective payout, it was like 38.
Right. So your point is that there's, take your gross payout, and there's so many pieces to even just the puzzle payout, right?
Right.
There's so many components of this. There's discount sharing. Is that your gross payout before ticket charges or after ticket charges? So we have to constantly be asking these questions.
Another advisor was like, well, my net payout after my admin fees is 94%. I said, okay. Well, what about transaction charges? Is that before or after transaction charges? He's like, oh no, that's before. I said, all right, so your net payout is not 94. Right. It's more like 92, which is still, when I say net payout, I'm not talking about local expenses and all that. I'm just talking about the platform fees from the firm. But he was at 90. So I'm like, all right, so you're really at 92. So again, in this case, we were also comparing one firm versus was really LPL over Raymond James. I said, so when you say to me, you really like Raymond James, but you need to get the difference in sort of the net payout closer. We're not trying to get to 94. We're really trying to get to 92 because that's the target. Because with Raymond James in one of their platforms, there's just an admin fee. There is no transaction charges, right? So understanding what you're actually talking about, and understanding the real math and the real numbers is really, really important because when you're negotiating, you need to know what you're asking for, right? And we need to know what we're asking for on their behalf.
I've been in situations with some of the firms that you mentioned where let's give the advisor choice, right? Especially in the independent space where they have the flexibility to make those business decisions. I've seen some firms come to the plate and say, okay, if the upfront piece is important to you, let's give you 70% of your transition upfront and then an 82% payout. Or, Mr. and Mrs. Advisor, we'll give you a 60% upfront piece and an 84% payout. And they had a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Because there was a difference of $500,000 up front, which could make a difference for their staff, who's going to be doing the lion's share of the work on this transition. Or can they hold off a little bit and realize the long-term profitability of their business, which they'll ultimately make out more anyway?
Yeah.
I always encourage firms, give the advisor the choice to decide.
Right.
Let them make that business decision for themselves.
Right. Show them the math.
Show them the math.
And as a business owner, you'll see where the math comes in. The other thing, which is where I thought you were going to go with this, when we talk about admin fees and operating expenses, so firm operating expenses, not below the line. So what we call below the line is your rent and your staff and all of those local expenses, because those, at least in the independent space, those are going to be the same no matter what firm you go to, for the most part. I know you can say, well, this firm's got virtual assistants, and maybe that's the case, right? But for the most part, everything below the line, we make an assumption that those are the same. You're going to spend the same on marketing, you're going to spend the same on rent, you're going to spend the same on supplies and all that other stuff. But some firms will give you the option of having a bundled admin fee, right, which includes the ticket charges, which means that you're, as the advisor, you're paying those things. Or they'll give you a lower admin fee plus unbundled transactions. And one group of advisors that I'm working with, a couple of them do bundled, where they are sort of eating the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But a couple of the advisors actually essentially have the clients pay the transaction charge, right? So their pricing is a little bit different, and their economics are a little bit different.
Within the team, they're choosing two different things?
Yeah, they're not really a team. They're more like a group of advisors.
That's interesting.
Right? And so it's important to understand that, because not that I'm going to be throwing any sort of like internal recruiters under the bus here, but what we find sometimes is that recruiters at some of the firms that you might be working with tend to leave out some of the details. Right.
Fine print.
The fine print, right? And again, which is why we have a really, really robust and in-depth pro forma modeling program that we take our clients through. If you're interested in having us do something like that for you, we would be open to having a conversation. We do make you sign an NDA because we've been developed ours over the last 10 or 12 years, and they're really, really good. But we vet out all the little details, right? Including, how much money are you going to lose in deferred comp, right? So your payouts, your admin fees, your ticket charges, your SIPC fees, your compliance fees. Is there an affiliation fee or no affiliation fee? Are you paying a technology fee per financial advisor or per person on your team, which includes non-registered staff?
There's so much detail that goes into it. And I think what we're trying to do is just caution the advisor, is make sure you know the whole story. I like to use the term hierarchy. Like, what's the most important things to you within the deal, with the pricing, SIPC fees, E&O fees, payout, upfront money, ticket charges, whatever it is. Make sure you know the whole story, and we can help you get there.
Yeah. Yeah, this one advisor that Pete is working on, he's moved a couple times, right? And he, in my opinion, keeps making the same mistake, right? Meaning that he's moving for the check, right? Because it's upfront capital and he can do some things, but he's got kids going to school and all that other stuff. And I'm trying to educate him to say, listen, you keep making a short term decision for long-term results, meaning that you're trying to have a result that's economically viable and self-sustaining for your family. Well, stop taking the upfront check that's the biggest check and going to the firm that's not the most advantageous for your business. And so when we had a conversation with him and I understood his business in more detail, there was a huge opportunity for this particular advisor in I'll just call it in the international space, right? Really, but like sort of Europe, right? And the firms that he's looking at, like Wells Fargo in particular, he can't even do that business. Mm-hmm. So basically I was like, so you are really just taking the check, right? You talk about wanting to build your business in this huge opportunity that's in front of you that you can take advantage of, which is frustrating you at the firm that you're at today because they don't have it. So you're basically going to repeat the same mistake again to get an upfront check, which is, I know this is going to sound funny, but it's short-lived.
And short-sighted.
It's short-sighted, short-lived. Meaning like you're going to get upfront money. You have to pay taxes on that money, right? Yes, you do it over a period of time, but you still have to pay taxes on that money. So you can't, it's not like you're going to get $1 million and you get to spend $1 million. You have to assume you're going to have to pay pay taxes on all that money. So the upfront money goes away quickly, right? What I'm trying to get him to understand is, and again, in this case, not that this is a Raymond James rant, but I feel strongly about this. They have the things that this advisor needs that can probably double or triple his business, mm-hmm. right? Which is significantly more than the $500,000 or even maybe $1 million. I don't know if it's $1 million. It's like $500,000 more if he went to Wells Fargo and the upfront and the assets and all that stuff. But I'm like, dude, you're being so short-sighted. And
I also wonder, maybe this is a rhetorical question. I also wonder if that advisor went back through all their moves and calculated all the upfront money that they mm-hmm. received, plus the tax advantages or disadvantages, mm-hmm. and then measured that against what it would have been like if they really focused on their payout and their pricing and all the profitability that they were missing.
Right.
From having that strategy of why they were moving for that upfront piece.
If they took, that's a great exercise. That's
why it was rhetorical.
If we
maybe we should do it.
That would be interesting to really almost do our pro forma like a look back.
Right, a look back on profitability.
Took our model,
right,
and backdated it 10 years. So where were you 10 years ago? This is what you did. You took a check, whatever, right? You took 2 checks. But if you just went to, in this case, Raymond James 10 years ago or 15 years ago,
or another independent chassis where there was
this guy, look, this is part of the other thing too, like it's for another topic, right? Yeah. He's probably going to still go to Raymond James on their independent and their W-2 side because he can get all the things he's looking for, right? A big check, just not maybe as big as the Wells Fargo check, but the business that he can do at Raymond James will dwarf what his existing business is. I firmly believe that.
Yep.
So the point is, one of the podcasts we did it's all about the net.
All about the net.
Which is what we were talking about. It's all about the net. How much money are you actually going to be making on one firm versus another firm, and define what a good deal means to you, right? And ultimately, in my opinion, you have to analyze how much money at the end of a 10-year period of time have I made at firm A versus firm B. Made in your pocket, right? If you're comparing W-2 to W-2, right, then you don't really need to worry about the tax component because it's sort of going to be it's a wash, right? It's the same effect, right? So how much money pre-tax have you made at that W-2 firm versus this W-2 firm. But when you're comparing W-2 to 1099, which is what our model does, then you have to compare after-tax dollars to after-tax dollars. And this difference is substantial.
Mm-hmm.
And so because what you're dealing with is, the W-2 firms pay me more money up front. Okay, I get that. But after it, usually what we've seen is the break even is about 3 or 4 years.
Well, and that's where I think some advisors get impatient and they'll say something like, well, I'm not going to break even till year 3 or year 4. But in the grand scheme of the life cycle of your business and life, that's a blink of an eye. That's nothing. So this really actually would be a great exercise for someone. Maybe it's exposure in a negative way. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that happens all the time, which is really why we do those, I've spent so much time, and now our CFO spends so much time working through these models for our clients, because it's hard to, when we talk about all of these nuances in every firm's deals, right? And I say they're deals, they're economics, so the payouts and transaction charges and SIPC fees and all these other things. It's hard to get your arms around comparing one versus another. Well, we've done it for you. Well, we do it for our clients, right? In that we compare every little thing, because each firm, you get a presentation from a firm and say, here's your offer, and it all looks great. They leave out some of the fine print. And advisors just have a hard time sort of levelizing the deals, right? How do you levelize the deal? So I'm comparing an apple and an apple, right? Well, that's what we've done in our pro formas, is that we've done it in a way where ultimately we can take all those things into consideration, and it levelizes the payout. It levelizes the payouts. It levelizes the net income. And then we sort of chart them on what's the break even on, if you're watching us on YouTube, you see I'm using my hands a lot today. What's the break even on accumulated, what I call accumulated earnings over 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, 6 year, right? And that's where you really have to understand what deal is a better deal, right? And
let's go through the exercise.
You need to go through the exercise.
I just think some advisors get stuck, and that's what we were talking about at the beginning. They just get stuck on one part of the story.
Yeah.
Well, they really need to look at all the different parts of the puzzle to really understand where are you gaining and where maybe are you not aware. What are some of those extra, costs in the fine print that we talked about, and where are you winning and where are you losing? Know the story before you make a final decision.
Right, and we talk all about the net, but the other thing is really, it's all about the dollars. This is the other thing where I've seen a lot of advisors get caught up, and they want to talk about the payout, right? But the payout is the one piece. Ultimately, we're all here to make money, right? So it's not about the payout necessarily. It's about how much money are you making. And so just because one firm is giving you 94 and the other firm is giving you 87, if the 87 nets you more money, it's a better deal.
And also, don't forget,
it's so many mistakes.
We were talking about this before the podcast. You also have to look at how you're running your business.
Right.
Are you doing a lot of trading? Are you using the right technology? I had a client of mine do a technology demo with a certain independent firm, and they literally asked the technology practitioner, said, well, that's going to incur my clients a lot of extra fees. Can we just override that? And they literally said no, and that firm was nixed out of the mix.
Yeah, there was like a technology charge for their clients.
Right, they couldn't override
that
it.
the firm was making money on.
And that chips away, to your point, at the 94 down to whatever it is.
Yeah, it's 94, then it's 93. Oh, right. No, but you have that fee. Oh, so okay. And then the other thing is that some firms, they give you, they have your payout, and then there's an admin fee, right? And there are some firms that give you your payout, and then after the payout, they hit you with the admin fee, right? Which is, okay, that's fine. But other firms hit the admin fee first, because it's on a bigger number, right? Then they give you you're getting a 94% payout, but it's on a lower revenue number because they took out the admin fee, which could amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars off your top line payout. So that's a nuance that very rarely do firms actually articulate that when they go through the negotiation. They just say, well, this is your payout and here's your admin fee. And they would leave it up to you to understand how it actually works.
Right. So ask all the right questions. And that's why they need to work with us, is make sure they know.
Honestly, that's why they need to work with us.
That's right.
Because they don't know what they don't. You don't know what you don't know. And we do this all the time, right? I mean, we did almost 200 transactions last year, 200 unique advisor moves last year. We're constantly getting in the weeds on these things because it's what we do for a living. And we just try to help advisors who really only want to do this one time, right? I mean, that's our goal.
But yeah, you don't want to do this again.
Right. Look, and that sounds counterintuitive because that's how we make our money, right? By advisors. I mean, there's only one way, right? We have other services which I'm not getting into, but for the most part, that's how we earn a living when we help an advisor move from one firm to another. So theoretically, yeah, if that advisor moved to one firm and then called us and wanted to move to another firm, yes, that we make money that way, but that's ultimately not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is bring our clients to the firm that they don't have to move from again, right? So we say we empower advisors to make the right move, not just the next move. Because we believe that if we do that, our reputation will be significantly better, and we'll get more referrals from those clients. I have situations like I'm working with some people right now where I can give a new client the name and phone number of any of my past clients without warning or without sort of like giving them a heads up, and just say, here, call them and ask them how I treated them, how we did we guide them, did we do all that stuff? And I know theoretically, right, what they're going to say.
Well, they'd probably say, we made a well-informed decision.
Right.
Because we went through the process, we knew all the facts, we knew all the all the things in fine print.
All the dirty details.
And we made a factual, well-informed decision.
Right. And they couldn't have done it without us.
That's right.
Right. And so that's what we're just trying to do here. We're just trying to educate you because there's a lot of activity in the marketplace, more so than ever before. I think it's going to continue to get this way. Firms are, I'll just say, hungrier, not desperate is not the right term, but hungrier for client assets. Client assets are moving faster than ever before, meaning that what we're seeing now is advisors, when they move, they are moving almost 100% of their client assets. It used to be roughly 80%, 85%. Then it was sort of in the 90s. It's like 95%. And that's basically when advisors decide not to take certain clients, right? So let's call it 95%. But they're also moving them significantly faster. I was talking to a gentleman at Raymond James, recruiter at Raymond James, the other day, and they said he was working with a bunch of Commonwealth advisors, and so it wasn't. I just was talking about something totally different. And he said that they moved an advisor with $180 million in assets, and in 3 weeks they had 160 million of the assets moved, and the other 20 million or so was held away assets, like in 3 weeks.
Wow. Right.
And so that's the reason I say that is because firms are recognizing the velocity at which the accounts are moving today and the success at which the advisors are moving those accounts. And that's part of the reason why deals have gone up, right? But you as the advisor are in the driver's seat because you're the one with the client assets. And so be mindful about when you're working, especially if you're doing this on your own, we would maybe implore you not to do that because there's just things that you just don't know that you've never, even if you've moved in the past, right?
Yeah, because again, just last year alone, 190, 200 firms, we've seen this 197 to be exact.
Sorry, who's counting?
But we've seen this over and over again, and we know what to look out for.
Right.
What's in the fine print, the gory details, what questions to ask, what to be aware of. And if ultimately you make a decision, then you have all the facts straight. You're checking all the boxes.
Yeah. The other thing is that one, even if you've moved in the past a couple times, the last time you probably moved was, let's call it 7, 8, 9 years ago. Well, then things have changed. In transitions, they change constantly, right? So you may not be aware of new parameters, new ideas, new deal structures, all of those things, right? And this is going to sound odd, but the recruiters at those firms, even managers in the W-2 space, they may not even know what kind of deals their firm can do, right? We work with them all the time, and I might make a suggestion to an internal recruiter, like, hey, we did a deal last year with you guys, and this is the structure. And many times they're like, I didn't know we could do that. Like they work for the firm and they don't know they can do it.
Yeah, or you were able to offset ACAT fees or such technology fees, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, like there's things that can be done that you may not realize for sure. And sometimes it's not a shot against the internal recruiter. Like I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, right? But they just might not be aware of a different deal structure, if guys on the East Coast, right? But somebody on the West Coast did some crazy deal because they had an advisor ask a question and the firm was like, we've never done that before. Let's look into it. And then they say, yeah, sure, we can do that, right? The firm doesn't broadcast out that they just created this new situation, right? With new parameter or whatever. So that's where we come in at real value, that we bring things to the table that I think that you may or may not be aware of to ultimately get you the best possible deal so you can make an informed, educated decision. So anyway.
Good stuff.
If you want to have that kind of conversation, you obviously can reach out to Stacey. She'd be happy to have the conversation and get into the weeds with you. She does all the time. She does a deep dive of all of her clients and understands all the different parameters. And you are not bashful about asking firms for all sorts of stuff for your clients.
No, well, we know what levers to pull.
Right.
We've done this a couple times. You can reach out to me at 856-816-6322 or Stacey at eliteconsultingpartners.com. Stacey, don't forget the E, or
Frank at eliteconsultingpartners.com. You can shoot me an email. You can call me 856-316-4651. And as always, you can always check me out on Instagram, which is frankLaRosa.elite. You can message me there, or you can shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I'm always, of course, on LinkedIn, and we're happy to talk to you, run through scenarios with you, just give you sort of a free consultation, just understand where your head is at, what you're trying to accomplish, and if you're already talking to firms, we can give you some color on those firms, our opinions about those firms, and maybe offer some other suggestions. We work with, over 150 some odd different firms.
Yep.
And so there's always different solutions out there that you may not be thinking about. So we'd love to have the conversation. We'd love to help you structure the best deal possible. Thanks a lot for listening.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics relating to the financial services industry, or just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast.